Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, people, midweek report time. There's actually, I'll tell you what, there has been a bit of news on fights up and coming, because there's one thing I was wondering going into this week is that there's kind of Canelo's fight is coming up next week, which is good. Looking forward to that. We'll do a watch along. We are going to grin and bear it. I have to work out the times for that, because that could be hard to work out what time to start at and how long to go to, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But with Canelo's fight next week, obviously Shakur and Valdez this week, and then there's not much until the end of May, whereas you've Bouts Richards coming up quicker than we thought. Now I would imagine in the next few weeks we'll be getting announcements on fights coming into the summer, because there is a bit of a dull. Now I know the summer months in boxing, they can be a hit and a miss sometimes in the summer. Like last year, July wasn't that stacked, whereas you can get other years where it peaks and troughs, I suppose, like everything. But we hopefully should be getting announcements on some cards coming up for, all of them. Sky. See, Sky having not the biggest stable and not that many big names, it's kind of hard. Like, once your big names fight, you don't really have many in reserve that you could just, shimmy out 2 months later. It's a case of we're waiting a couple of months. So they put on the boxer tour, which aren't bad. They're not bad, them boxer tours. Anyway, I'm going a bit off there on one. Let's look at some of the things that have been said. Now, obviously, the one thing I want to talk about more in depth is the comment Dillian White made. I didn't get a chance to do a standalone video on it. I spent too much time doing the WTF video. But the comments Dillian White made about Tyson Fury, saying that he was caught with a shot, it did buzz him, right? But it was really the push that Tyson Fury gave him, which was the real issue. He said here with Sky Sports, when it landed I was buzzed, but he full on pushed me. I fell over, hit my head in the canvas, which is illegal. But as usual, they let Fury do what he wants and get away with it. I should have been allowed extra time to recover. He also stated that he wants a rematch with Tyson Fury. He said he'll retire. I hope he doesn't, because I want another go. Wow. I mean, where do you even start with that? I was just watching the Fury KO back. I watched it a few times. Not because I like seeing Dillian White get KO'd, but because I wanted to actually look at the footwork of Tyson Fury and just see, because some people were saying it didn't look like a particularly hard punch. The way Fury was able to dip up with it and actually get a good bit of velocity into it, his feet were well on the ground, the way he was able to rotate, there was a good bit of velocity on that shot. A lot of times you'll see really big shots, they don't look like big shots. You see that with some punches, not every punch is a swinging Deontay Wilder right hand, which lands with full force, but it looks like, it's coming from a while back. You see it coming, you just think, oh, that's going to hurt. A lot of times when you see big shots land and you see guys go down, they don't look like much. If you think about it, they don't look like many shots. Like, look at, just going back a while, if you look at Tommy Morrison with some of his left hooks, when he would throw, now he had one of the best left hooks in general. I mean, Morrison's left hook was crazy. I mean, there's highlight videos of him, and it's just crazy with the left hook. He was so limited. That's all he had was a left hook. He had an alright right hand, to be fair, but mainly a left hook. But you see some of the knockouts where he's just sending people to the canvas. It doesn't. You'd swear he was gonna like leap in with a big power, but he was just kind of like boom, and just gone. So with Fury, that shot buzzing Dillian White, yeah, it definitely buzzed him. And Dillian White, with regard to him saying he hit his head on the canvas, look, yes, Fury pushed him. He did. But let's not beat around the bush here. He was going to go down anyway. We're not going to make it and say, like, oh, well, technically if Fury didn't push him, he would have went down anyway. And as for him hitting his head, I mean, if it did, it would have only grazed the canvas, because it looked like his shoulders were the ones that took most of the impact when he hit the canvas. So for Dillian White saying that, look, Dillian White, I don't begrudge him saying it in that regard, because what's he going to say? Like, and Dillian White saying it's a close fight. What is he actually going to come out and say? Is he going to come out and say, he beat me from pillar to post, I was rubbish, I couldn't really do anything? Dillian White is obviously looking at the kind of glasses half full kind of mentality, thinking, yeah, I lost, but look, I wasn't getting beaten black and blue in there. I got caught with a shot, and I would have been all right if he hadn't have pushed me. He's looking for reasons to, like, Amir Khan has done it, and people complain about Amir Khan, coming up with excuses, saying this, that, and the other. But what's the alternative? Like, what are you actually gonna say? I've been around fighters in boxing gyms who are at literally no level, pro boxers, and they're at no level. They're probably at journeyman level, and they don't know it, but they were at journeyman level. This is a couple of years ago, back in 2019. And when I looked at some of them, the way their mentality was horrible in terms of, I know I'm rubbish, I know I'm garbage, I know I'm not the best, but I'll take some stopping. It's like, whoa, mate. And see, some of these people are saying, oh, I want to get to, European. It's like, how do you envision getting to any decent level if you're just saying, I'm not that good, and my only attribute is I'll take some stopping? It's like, mate, Dillian White is not going to come out and speak like that. Anthony Joshua was not going to come out. The guys who reach, even European level fighters, are not going to come out and say that. They're going to come out and say, I want a world title next. They're not going to. They don't want to say European's my level. So Dillian White saying stuff like that, I get that. People like Dillian White. Like, look at Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis is a great example. I remember Lennox Lewis was doing. It was a 1-to-1 with Sky years ago. I think it might have been in like 2012 or something like that. It was basically Sky interviewing Lennox Lewis. Just a career review from Lennox Lewis. And I never forget, I don't know if it's still on Sky, but he complained about the McCall stoppage, which was not a BS stoppage, by the way. Lewis was all over the place. But he actually said in the Rackman fight, when he got ironed out by Hasim Rackman, he didn't know where he was nearly knocked out cold. He actually said that the referee didn't help him in that fight. It was like, mate, you were nearly knocked out cold, and here he is, retired for however many years, and he's saying that the referee didn't help him, almost implying that if the referee, like Emmanuel Stewart got in the ring before the referee was stopped and was holding Lennox Lewis, like, just to keep him standing, but he's implying that he could have beaten that count and gone on to beat all of them or beat Hasim Rackman in that fight. These fighters, they're not going to turn around and say, I was beaten from pillar to post, I was outboxed, I was outclassed. They're going to say, like, oh, it was this or it was outside factors. Because if they didn't, like, what would they do? Like, they wouldn't get to where they get. You hear Hatman say it, but it's true. When you look at these fighters, you look at them in interviews, you look at things they say, and you think, some people will say, like, they sound delusional. But you got to think about it like this. What are they going to say? I'm no good, he's better than me, I can't beat him. They're going to think, no, he beat me tonight, but he only beat me because of this. If it wasn't for this, well, I'd be in it. Or I was in the fight until, he fouled me, or he might not have fouled him, but you know what I mean? I'm using that. They'll just say, oh, well, if you look at it back, he technically fouled me, and this, they look for that. In terms of Dillian White, what he does next, I don't know. I would imagine the Chisora fight is something that he is looking at. I would imagine that Sky would offer decent enough money to put that on pay-per-view. I mean, I'm assuming Sky have a limited number of pay-per-views that they would like to run. They've already run one this year. I'd imagine that Brooke Eubank, whenever that gets announced, will be on pay-per-view. So if they could get another one in, maybe 3 or 4 this year, that wouldn't be actually a bad going for Sky if you think about it, considering where we thought they'd be about this time last year. When Hearn announced he was leaving them, we wondered if they'd ever even do boxing again. They could get I'm just thinking they probably would put Marshall Shields on pay-per-view. They've already done Brooke, Chisora, White Tree, just for argument's sake. That's a third one. Brooke Eubank, it's another one. And then who knows? I mean, who else do they have? Could they get another pay-per-view? I doubt it very much. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. So that is Dillian White. In terms of Eddie Hearn, now, he gave an interview on the Zone Boxing Show. He actually stated, and here's an interesting one as well, that July the 23rd is the front-running date for AJ versus Usyk, the rematch. He said it's in final negotiations for a site, UK or Middle East. One or the other is going to host that fight. That's going to be an interesting fight. So we kind of know roughly when that fight's going to happen. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I still favour Alexander Usyk. I've said it before quite heavily. And I think that's going to be a very, very good fight. In terms of some of the other things Eddie Hearn said about Dillian White, he said that Dillian would feel like he just made a mistake, but there wasn't a mistake. Like Povetkin, when he was in control of that fight, he was getting outboxed this time. I didn't give him a round, maybe one round. So Eddie Hearn basically, and I saw a quote here as well. I'm nearly sure I seen a quote where he was asked about Dillian White saying that he hit his head on the canvas. Here it is. He said, I think he was badly hurt from the uppercut. The push was blatant. And yeah, we all seen it. It was illegal. Yes, there's no doubt about that. Did it make a difference? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it changed the process of the fight. So, Eddie Hearn is saying that, Dillian White, the push happened. Not ideal. Tyson Fury, you're not allowed to do that. But at the end of the day, he's implying that it made no difference at all. And the way Eddie Hearn has been, I was talking to me and Jamie, Punch Perfect Boxing, shout out to him, great guy, great channel, absolutely just gent. Me and him did a video talking about that, and we've always felt that Eddie Hearn and Dillian White, there's not that tightness that you see with him and Anthony Joshua, that you see with him and Conor Benn. And they're fighters that are in long-term deals with Eddie Hearn. But he's been good with other, I know Canelo is, okay, he's the biggest cash cow in boxing. He would be. That's fair enough. But even with other fighters who are maybe not long-term with him, he's always seemed to have a decent enough rapport with them. But Dillian White, pretty much ever since Dillian White started working with Eddie Hearn, there's always been, you always get the impression they've never been on each other's page. And I don't mean in a sense if they probably don't get on. I'd say they kind of just have that respect for one another. But I'd say Dillian White has always been, I'll go left, Eddie Hearn wants to go right. I always got that impression. So with Dillian White moving forward, I'd be very surprised if he's sticking with Eddie Hearn. Very surprised. I think that he feels probably comfiest with Sky. They've looked after him well. He's his own stable of fighters who he can maybe manage and get on some of Sky's shows. So I would say that is looking ever more likely. In terms of some of the other fights that have been announced over the last few days, there's been a few fights. It's announced that Trevor Bryan will defend his WBA regular heavyweight title against Daniel Dubois June the 9th in a venue that's to be confirmed. Now, Don King won the purse bid for that. I know it's amazing. Don King winning purse bids in 2022. Who'd have thought? Don King. Jesus Christ, people. I wonder which fighter he stole that money from. I wonder which fighter he's took the money from to pay for this fight. But apparently that fight's going to be in America, where we do not know. The problem with that is, I'd love to review that fight, but Don King is so stingy about, and such a stickler for copyrighting guys who do reviews of any shows he's on, so we'll watch that one with space. But look, all joking aside, Daniel Dubois beats the living crap out of Trevor Bryan. Beats the living crap out of him. And I think Frank Warren may look at Dillian White and think, maybe I should have worked a bit harder with you. Maybe I should have done a bit more with you, because he'd have to probably swallow a pride pill. But let's just say Frank Warren was able to arrange something with Dillian White. If Dillian White signed a fight deal or a 2-fight deal with BT Sport, he'd be happy to have him out on one of his own shows, headlining against whoever, maybe Carlos Takam, someone like that. And I'm sure Warren is thinking, Dubois beats Trevor Bryan, build it as a heavyweight title fight. Dillian White, Daniel Dubois, pay-per-view, there you go. He's been building Dubois since he's turned pro. I mean, Dubois has been Warren's next heavyweight for years. When he lost to Joe Joyce, even though Joe Joyce signed with him, he was so upset. You could see it. It was a real case of, it's in-house, Frank. You're promoting both guys, but he put all his eggs in Dubois. And I think he still is hoping to make something out of Dubois. And he's probably looking at Dillian White thinking, crap, if Daniel wins, which we should, there's a fight right there. I can't let that slip through my fingers. In terms of other news, Ring Magazine is going to be on the line for Valdez versus Shakur. Cannot wait for that fight. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. This is an interesting one as well. And I was surprised about this as well. I've seen it just break there yesterday. Warren has actually signed a new 3-year deal with BT Sport. Now, I have to say, that surprised me. I thought Warren and BT Sport was touch and go because the show quality certainly. Like Warren signed with BT Sport in 20. Well, I think they actually announced the deal in 2016, but it was 2017 when they started putting the shows on. Early 2017, I think, as well. And they've got progressively worse as his stable has progressively got weaker. So I did think maybe they'd be looking at a different deal. BT Sport maybe looking to getting Probellum. Well, say Probellum. God knows what's happening there. You know, we'll wait a few months and see whether they change their name or whether they go all together. But I did wonder about BT Sport. Would they stay with Frank Warren? And obviously they have. And I wondered if he got a set amount of fights in the contract for BT Sport. I mean, BT Sport is not Sky Sports. It's not that big, but it's a big. They've got Premier League football. When you have Premier League football, it will help. It will help promote your shows. You know, it really will. Premier League, Champions League, all that helps. It really, truly does. In terms of other fights, Joe Joyce, Joe Parker. Fight is looking likely to take place on July the 2nd at the Wembley Arena in London. I did wonder where they do that fight. Whether it be like the O2 or something like that. Wembley Arena is not a bad arena. I don't see as many fights there as we used to. It used to be actually quite an alright. Like I guess with the O2 being what it is, I think that's kind of really kind of come in and taken over. It's kind of like you've the Copper Box, which is kind of smaller. You've the Wembley Arena, which is slap bang in the middle, and you've the O2. They're all in different parts of London as well. I mean, like Copper Box is in Stratford. Wembley Arena is like way out the way, near like it's like near kind of, it's not near Heathrow per se, but it's out that way. And then you have the O2 in Greenwich, which is like near the city airport, which is like there are 3 different parts of London. So they're looking to get that fight, and I think that's a great fight. I think it's a great fight. He was meant to have a card on this Friday. I think Friday's the 29th. Raven Chapman was meant to be on that card. That's got pulled. I would imagine because you binned the main event. Well, you didn't bin it. You moved the main event back a week. So that card has pretty much got nothing on it now. So I'm hearing talk that maybe some of them will be on that card. So here's hoping. This fight right here, I mean, people, mark this down in your calendar. June the 25th, Jesse Bam Rodriguez. And Jesse Rodriguez is tremendously talented. I was super impressed with him against Quadras. Coming up in weight as well. He's going to defend his WBC Super Flyweight World title against Srisaket Rumvasai on June the 25th. Now, Rumvasai, I believe Rumvasai was actually meant to fight Quadras, if memory serves me correctly. I think that this is a great fight, and I think that this will be another coming out fight for Bam Rodriguez. I'll tell you why. Because Quadras, I felt it seen better days at the time. Rumvasai is a little bit more fresh. Is a little bit more fresh than Quadras, but still, Rumvasai is getting up there in age. But I do think it's going to be a great fight for Bam Rodriguez. He is talented as hell. It's sad that a lot of these guys don't get the exposure because they're the lighter guys. But these lighter guys, I mean, they can really fight people. They can really fight. So Jesse Bam Rodriguez, Srisaket Rumvasai, put that down in your calendar. In terms of other news, just an interesting quote here, and I mean, like, I'm wondering what Mike Tyson was on Joe Rogan, and it's only breaking. He said, I tell you, after Deontay Wilder, who he should fight next if he fights back, and he says, I think he should fight Usyk. That'd be good. Wilder, he's going to be aggressive, try and knock him out. He would get just, if Artur Szpilka and his movement is causing you issues, and that was a fresher Wilder, if that's causing you issues, I mean, Usyk is like Artur Szpilka on I don't know what. I mean, he is like Artur Szpilka on all different types of steroids. That's the best way to describe it. He is Artur Szpilka, not 2.0, 20.0. I don't see that ending well at all for Deontay Wilder. Not in the slightest. See Chavez Jr. visiting Canelo in camp. Canelo, obviously, Bivol is next week, as I said. We're doing a live watch along for that fight. I want to have a quick just look at the undercard. Just because I know I will do a watch along for that. That's a fight that deserves one. But what's the undercard shaping up like on that? We'll finish it off with this. Yoletsky Vasquez versus Jose Saito. Montana Love versus Gabriel Venezuela. That's going to be a good fight. Hrgovic Zhang. Hrgovic to win that, pretty straightforward. And the main event is not a bad show, so I'll try and get the last 3 fights. So I'd imagine that we're looking at a 2 a.m. start or 3 a.m. start. 2:30, 3 a.m. I reckon roughly we will go live for that. But we obviously got a lot to talk about with that fight. Next week we'll do a few more videos on that, and I will obviously try and get a Shakur Valdez. I think I've already given my prediction on it, but I'll go in a little bit more in depth into it in the next video. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Smash the like button if you could. I really appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Numbers the last 2 weeks have been tremendous. I mean, I only hit 7k like 2 weeks ago, and I'm maybe a bit more, 2 and a bit weeks ago, and I'm already at 7,330 something, I think 38. So like we're racing through 7 onwards to 8, then back to 10, or then forward to 10. Lads, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed it. For now, smash the like button, hit subscribe, share it, all that good stuff. Peace.